I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 29. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hey everyone. This week we have Jordan Ostroff on the podcast, and it was a pleasure to talk to him. I've had a couple of really great conversations with him before today, and today was no different. He is in Orlando. He's an attorney. He has a successful firm, and he does things on his own terms, which I love. He builds his firm on his own terms. He's designing his life on his own terms, and he really feels passionately about doing things that way. So it's a great conversation. He also has a book he's working on, which should be done next year. And I hope to have him back on when that book is out, because I would love to hear about the experience of writing the book, but then also I think, having the book done, it'll be great to hear him talk about even more than he does today, what's going in the book. The book is right now, the working title is 1,000 Days to $1 Million. And then there's a subtitle there that I won't botch right now, but he does say it in the podcast. So it sounds like a really solid read. It's all about relationships and networking in a really authentic way. And he's 100% an expert on that. This is what he knows best. So him sharing this is really wonderful for the rest of the world. Please enjoy this fun, laid back, and informative conversation with Jordan Ostroff. All right, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Velocity Work Podcast. I'm super lucky to have Jordan Ostroff here with us today. I have had the pleasure of meeting him once in person and really connected with him over how he runs his business. And I agree with a lot of the things that he's put into place for himself and for his practice. So I am pumped to have you on the podcast. Thank you for joining us, Jordan.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, so there's many reasons I was excited to have you on the podcast, and I definitely want to dig into those. But would you take a moment, tell everybody, in case they don't know, who you are and what you do?
Sure. So my name's Jordan Ostroff, and over the last year, I've started telling people I'm a small business owner who runs a law firm, more so than a lawyer. Yes. We've got 5 attorneys at the firm, myself and 4 others. We're in Orlando, Florida, so the Central Florida area, doing mostly business law, personal injury, and criminal defense. But really, for me, I don't really do legal work. So I'm in charge of marketing and creating the systems and all the processes and everything so that everybody else can go and be a lawyer.
Okay, awesome. Yes. And you have, when I talked to you last, which was in June, I think you had 4 or 5 attorneys working for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been back and forth between 4 and 5 over the last year.
Okay, yeah. And then how big is your team, your entire team?
So we've got 10 people in total. So half attorneys, half not. So that keeps us, we try to be very attorney forward. We try to make sure the clients have contact with their attorneys proactively throughout the course of the case. So we're not overly staff heavy. So that way we can do those things.
That is great. Which tells me, after talking to you, I know that running efficiently is something that's important to you and having systems into place and all of that good stuff. And I would imagine that's part of your success, or what you would attribute your success to, is being lean, not overstaffing for the busyness that you experience, just getting tighter and getting better at your processes. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So I look at a law firm like a ship. The larger the ship is, the longer it takes to turn. So at the point that you are not 100% certain about what you want to do and what you want to look like, stay smaller, stay lower staff so that you can jump on any of those opportunities, and then you'll naturally grow into what works for you and what you want, and then it's harder to change.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Well, that's incredible. Well, okay. The thing that really struck me, when I met you in June, I loved talking to you because I didn't know anybody it was at the Max Law conference, and it was the social hour the night before everything really started. I didn't know anybody there. And once we talked about like what you do and what I do, we started talking about the business side of things. And I was just had a blast talking to you because you really understood. I could tell you understood what it takes to really run a business, because you spend most of your time mentoring associates and also going out and getting business, like drumming up the business, bringing it in. And so that told me that you really understand the big picture, especially because you're not a 75-year-old dude that's slowing down on law. Like, that's not what the picture, like, you deliberately built this and you're pretty young so that you're able to do the things that you're focused on right now. So I would love to hear you say more about that. I guess if we could start with, how long has your firm existed? And did you always know that this is what you wanted to create, or did this sort of happen organically?
Sure. So, I mean, one, I feel old some days, but anyway, the thing for us was, so we just passed 4 years as the firm. We started in October of 2015. So a little bit more than 4 years now. Before that, I was a prosecutor in Orlando. So I was, handling cases from the state side. And then when I first started the practice, we started doing criminal defense from the other side. So it didn't start. I started out wanting to be a lawyer. Like, I knew I wanted to be a lawyer since I was 6 years old. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what that really was. I ended up at the University of Central Florida for college. They had a mock trial team. I got to do fake trial. I loved it. I realized that what I wanted to do was actually what I wanted to do, even though I didn't know what it was. And so I always wanted to be a lawyer. And then when I started running the business, the longer I did it, the more I realized that I could find other great attorneys. I couldn't find other great business owners. I couldn't find other great marketers. I couldn't find other great, whatever it was. And so I was like, look, I've got 2 attorneys at my firm that have been doing this for almost 30 years. I've been doing it for 8. Why not let them do the legal work? Because I can do the technology stuff. I can do the systems. I can do the customer service, which ends up mattering more and is harder to find somebody else to take it over.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. 100%. Okay. So that's fascinating. So the first 2 attorneys that you hired had been doing law for a long time. Is that right?
Well, no, not the first 2. I'm saying now, like I, as I realized that the legal work was what I could pass off to somebody else, I started looking for more experienced attorneys to take over the legal work. Because then I can tell people, oh, hey, this person's done this for 30 years. They're board certified. They're, whatever it is that their sales pitch is as a lawyer. And then I can fall back on our sales pitch as a business. A lot of law firms, unfortunately, are not run as a business. They're run as, I don't know, a charity or a professional office that doesn't really care about accounts receivable, accounts payable, keeping overhead low, etc. And that's why a lot of attorneys, I think, get burned out, because they make themselves into the product to fix every single hole when they're not running their thing like a business well.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. That exists way too often. I was just talking to someone else about the stress levels it seems like in the conversations I have with attorneys who are trying to figure out how to spend more time on the business than in the business, and they haven't totally figured that out yet. There's a lot of stress and frustration that comes with it, because there's this piece of business, their business is technically being neglected. And so there's a lot of stress that comes with that, because you don't have visibility into the numbers. There's no sense of clarity. You don't know what your goals are. You're just lawyering and then trying to keep your head above water on the business side of things. And that's about it. And so to your point, I think it turns into looking a lot like a charity or a business that's just not run very well. But I do think there's a lot of people out there striving they want to spend more time on the business, and they're trying to figure out how to bridge that, go from being the main attorney to being able to focus more on the business and having someone else do the lawyering. Do you, from your perspective, like when you first made that move, what had to be in place for you to feel comfortable to just bring on another attorney so that you could start to focus elsewhere?
So, great question. Can we back up a second before answering this question?
Yes.
So the thing that I don't think people think about that they need to is whether or not, what do they actually want out of their firm or out of their career? And so, we can sit here and talk about being the executive and doing all these other things, but a lot of people don't want to do that or aren't good at that. So I tell people at the very beginning, you have to track all of your cases. Where are they coming from? And then you can see kind of what you're doing to generate business. So for us, I saw that, it was myself and my wife. She's a lawyer as well. So she was at the firm with me for a while. And I was generating, a lot of the stuff. She had some former clients that have come back and hired her afterwards and later in second stuff. And so we were looking at it like, okay, well, we can generate business based upon us. And so it was easy then for us to transition. Well, one, because I had to. We were spending too much time in court. It was terrible. Both of us were doing multiple courtrooms a day, et cetera. So we kind of had to do it. But then also I made a deal with myself that was like, all right, we're going to hire an attorney, but now I'm going to do 2 networking lunches a week instead of 1. And I'm going to go to 3 networking events a week instead of 2. And so by making that deal with myself and by going forward with it, it was easy. I shouldn't say it was easy. It was easier to do it because I knew what my commitment was to make enough work for that person.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so even though you weren't positive what the plan was going to turn out to be, you had a plan. Like you weren't just you knew how you were going to spend your time. If you were given more time, you knew what you were going to do with it, at least certain results that you were going to shoot for with that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, well, so I wasted a ton of money on traditional advertising and marketing and a lot of those things. And I didn't like the clients it brought in. I didn't like the amount of money it brought in. I didn't like the overhead. And I went back to, I like the clients that came in for being referred to us. And so I was like, all right, well, this is the only way to get more referrals is to meet more people and make more connections and everything. And then I looked at it from, I could make more money. I could generate more money. I could generate more business that would cover people to do the stuff I don't want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. No, that's good. That's helpful. I think, also, I don't think this came up when we talked last, but for some reason, do you know the definition, or do you ever think about or use leading indicators and lagging indicators inside your business? Does that sound familiar?
It does not.
Okay. That's totally okay. Basically there's, it's leading indicators are the things that you have control over in the business. So they're like, you would essentially set up, it's like your networking lunches. Like I'm going to do X number of networking lunches a week. That's something, it's almost like if you do those things, your hypothesis is it's going to lead to X goal, right? And so the lagging indicators are the things, the bigger goals that you set that are a product of your leading indicators. Gotcha. Anyway, we don't have to go like too deep into it, but I think of you a lot when conversation comes up around leading and lagging indicators, because I remember from talking to you, you have practices that you put into place that they are leading indicators, even though it's not what you call them, but that's what somebody out there calls them, where it's basically like, I'm going to commit to X, Y, and Z because I think it's going to result in this bigger goal that I'm shooting for. And there's commitment behind it. And there's no, like from talking to you before, like you really stick to whatever you said you were going to do. And I think one of the reasons that this stuck for me when I was talking to you is because you're talking about your associates and how you're trying to mentor them, that they've got to have a certain number of lunches every week set up for themselves, or whatever it is that they do in terms of networking or bringing in business, like whatever the efforts are. Like they can't let the lawyering run over that stuff. They've got to make time for those things. So you could tell me if I'm off, because it has been several months since we talked, but I remember there seemed to be an importance that you placed on really sticking to and committing to the practices that were going to make the difference in the end. Does that sound fair or right?
I mean, I appreciate it. I hope it's correct. No, but I mean, you're dead on. So our whole thing is, you look at all these firms that are like a pyramid. And so you've got the face of the firm at the top and everybody else falls underneath. And that's the one who's trying to get all the awards. And that's the one who's trying to get all the recognition and all these things. And I flipped it on its model and I was like, why not do it more as an inverted pyramid, where why not have, 5 or 6 attorneys that other people want to go to that they can see with a support structure behind them, just because, I hate it when the client goes, they hire the named attorney, the head of the face of the firm, and they never see that person again because that person's doing a bunch of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, why wouldn't I want to hire the person that's the legal elite for the last 15 years and is the super lawyer for the last 10 and whatever it is when nobody else has any, recognition that we can see? So we try to do that. And then also from that, we try to get them out there meeting people. So I'll walk them through the same things that I'm doing to generate business. And I always tell them, look, you're never going to generate as much business as me because you're also doing legal work. Like, I'm not saying there's anything better than me than is better than you. In fact, a lot of them I think are better than me on so many different things, but I don't have to do the legal work component. So I have to be generating, more stuff than everybody else. And I always tell them, like, look, you get in a position where you get close to it. I'll get you an associate. We can put you into my spot. We can get you an associate who's going to do your legal work, and you can keep going out there and doing all this stuff. But at the end of the day, let's say hypothetically the market tanks tomorrow, firms will always have room for rainmakers. A business will always have room for somebody who can bring in business, who can make those connections, who can generate it. Somebody who sits at a desk billing 200 hours all day, if their job gets cut because the hours aren't there, the firm's not going to lose any sleep.
So true. Yeah. It's like there's such value in being able to bring in business. Such value. Okay. Well, this sort of brings me, because we're talking about getting out there and networking and all that good stuff, this brings me to so I wanted to have you on the podcast anyway, because of what I knew from you before. And then somewhere on Facebook, I saw that, you are working on a book, and you just told me the title of the book name before we started this podcast, which I freaking love. So tell us about the book you're writing. And yeah, like, I would love to know what inspired it. Like, why now are you writing this book, and how you came up with the title?
All right. So, let me start with, I've wanted to do this for a while. It's this hopefully quarter, but probably third life crisis type thing of like, when I die, what's going to be left behind? And, so when I saw I remember it so vividly when I saw the Max Law conference list for last year. They had John Fisher talking about how, I think his thing was titled, how writing a book is the best networking you can do, or something along those lines. And I was like, exactly. I've been talking about this. I've wanted to do this. Here's somebody talking about it. He had a great presentation that was very, it was funny. It was engaging. And I was like, all right, I got to do this. And he said something that resonated with me so much. He said, write the book that only you can write. And so I've been tossing around a bunch of ideas, but I was like, look, I think I'm just the right amount of vain. I'm not so vain to think that I can do a lot of these things better than 1,000 other people. I was like, but the thing that I can do is I can talk to people about it from the very beginning. Like, I'm basically writing things a year after I've done them. And I think that's the book that only I can write because it's so new to me. It's so fresh. It's right there. Mm-hmm. And so from that, I don't know how I came up with the name, but we ended up on 1,000 Days to $1 Million. So : how to generate $1 million or more in referrals in under 3 years, just because it's what I had been through. I've run my firm for a little over 4 years now, and whatever, I don't know the exact day, but at the 2.5 year mark or something like that, I had generated about $1 million in revenue from it. And so the more I talk to people, the more I realize that seems to be the biggest sticking point, is that very beginning, either getting things off the ground or getting that first really nice foothold. And so I'm hoping this book will resonate with people as to, how to get started on this path, or how to continue on the path, or confirm what you're already doing and, take it to the next step with something that I can control. Because, I can't write the book on 5 years to $20 million because I'm not there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fantastic. I remember that talk that John Fisher gave, and he basically asked people to stand up and move to one side of the room, I think, if they were going to write a book this year. And there weren't that many. There were people, but there weren't that many. And I think I love that it affected you, because I think the people who are they're gonna commit to writing a book, which of all the people that moved across the room, I bet a really slim percentage actually do it, just because that's what happens.
Well, it is a lot of work. And I'm still a little over halfway done with a first draft in 6 months. So we'll see.
Did you start on it right away?
No, I'd like to say I did, but there were 100 other, tidbits and stuff that came up that were faster to integrate, that are quicker things that were more beneficial for everybody else. And so really this was a pet project that I would say probably about 2 months I've been doing it. So
Yeah.
4 months afterwards it got started.
That's so great. Well, okay. I don't know. I know that book isn't totally fleshed out yet and you're still working on it, but is there like any nuggets that you are working to expand on in the book that maybe you're willing to give a glimpse of here on the show?
Sure. So the way that I looked at it was I wanted somebody to have the roadmap of getting all of this stuff done. And so it starts out with really finding your ideal problem that you're solving, from that finding your ideal client. And so once you have those two things, and really it's just a bunch of rhetorical questions or hypothetical questions for you to ask to try and figure it out. But it talks, but we're trying to get people in that mindset of thinking about who you actually want to help and what you actually want to do for them. And by the more specific you get with that, the better chance you have of success. So like for me, when I first started my practice, I only knew criminal law. So I had to do criminal defense, but I was thinking about like, who do I actually want to help when it comes to criminal stuff? And having been graduated from UCF, having practiced in Orlando, having 68,000 students there, I was like, I want to work with UCF students. So I started learning a lot of the cases that'll go on over there, the Office of Student Conduct stuff. And I didn't do this intentionally, but I realized that I focused a lot of my efforts on tracking down those ideal clients without really thinking about it. From my standpoint, I was like, well, it's probably their first crime. They probably don't have much history. Their parents are probably going to pay. They checked a lot of boxes I thought were important. But from that, I got to look at like, all right, I want to meet with the attorneys that are representing their parents for estate planning stuff or for family law stuff. I want to go try and meet the people that are running the student organizations over there. I want to go try and talk to the fraternities and sororities. And so I catered the value I provided, and I catered who I was trying to meet around trying to get cases from, the UCF students. And then I was right, thankfully, that it was usually their parents paying. It was usually their first case. It was usually something that we got resolved very nicely for them. The ones that were in different organizations had friends that picked up similar issues. And a lot of them were, non-criminal stuff. You'd have, a couple kids sent an email cheating on a test or something during it, and then all of them get popped. And so you can help a couple of them. And then the next semester, the same thing would happen. And, you'd have somebody who took the class a second time that would let you know about the other issues and whatever. So, but it really helped me. I wasn't praying. I wasn't spraying and praying for it. I was trying to target people in a specific niche, a specific area. And then we were able to kind of expand from that. So that's where the book starts.
Okay. Yeah. And your firm has grown pretty quickly, but how long do you think it took you, like once you committed to that, how long did it take you to start seeing the fruits of your labor?
Well, so it's funny you mention it that way. I mean, it's a great, I like it. The fruits of your labor thing. For me, I actually bought a traffic ticket business about 9 months after I started my practice. And it completely derailed me from everything that I was doing that was successful, but it was like out of the frying pan and into the fire, and I was drowning and had to get procedures in place and get policies going and bring on the other attorneys. So it really it forcibly accelerated me getting back on the path of doing things the right way and making them repeatable and tracking and whatever. I didn't really understand what I was doing was right until I put myself in a position where I was screwed if I didn't fix everything.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. All right. Do you, when you started or even now, did you have or use a marketing company or a marketer, or you were scrappy with this?
So I started out with nothing. I left the state attorney's office. I was making $49 a year. My wife had left a job as an attorney to go teach civics as a teacher for $40 a year. So I quit and we were living off, $40,000 until I started making stuff. So I got a Wix website, I think for free or $10 a month. I got a Google account for $10 a month. I did nothing. And then I was able to build enough. And then I just started blowing through what I was generating to see what would work. And so I hired a bunch of different marketing companies. I paid a bunch of different paid for lead services, a bunch Google ads, Facebook ads, NOLO leads, whatever it was. And none of them worked for me. It wasn't the return I wanted. It wasn't the clients I wanted. It wasn't the messaging I wanted. It just wasn't right for me. And it works for a ton of other people, but for me, it just wasn't the right fit. And so then we moved, and we actually ended up bringing a lot of our marketing stuff in-house now, so that it can be more specific and direct and targeted, and it can be more referral based. I've got somebody in the office who sets everybody up with the lunches. So we've got a list of the people to reach out to and follow up with and schedule and do all those things internally.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine it feels riskier for someone to do that, to have someone more in-house, essentially organizing and making sure that everything is being stayed on top of in terms of outreach and marketing in your own ways. But it's so much more connective. I can see where the results would be richer by doing that. And I was actually just talking to you. I had just mentioned before we started this interview that I talked to Damon Pendleton. He said the same thing, which is fascinating because I think so many, clearly, of people who the digital advertising space is working for. I don't know that I know for certain anyone. I'm sure that I do. I just don't. I don't know the numbers, so I don't know what's working, what's not working. But the people who I talk to that are a little more grassrootsy about things, which sounds ridiculous to say out loud, but highly organized, but more direct outreach it seems like some of the people who have some of the strongest businesses, that's where their main focus is, which is fascinating to me because technology is moving so quickly in one direction and everyone seems to really be trying to ride that wave. But I don't know if it's coincidence or not that the people I'm talking to who have really great business, strong businesses, they don't rely on that heavily. They rely more on relationships and direct contact.
Well, so I've been lucky enough to have a couple really good mentors in town who are 20, 25, 30-year experience attorneys who have been through this, who've run practices, whatever. And so one of them, it does, I think, more family law than anybody else in the area on a zero ad spend. And, so I was talking to him about this. So he was kind of my proof of concept, like you can do it this way. And his thing was like, look, if I got bored one month, I have $40,000 to drop on Google ads and I could crush everybody in the marketplace who's doing Google ads because I could double or triple what they're paying for the leads. He's like, but I don't need them and I don't want them. And that sat with me because I was like, what prevents, so we're in Orlando. John Morgan is here. So Morgan & Morgan is the largest law firm in the country. And John Morgan literally lives here. His kids are here. This is their big one. And there's still a bunch of firms from Jacksonville and from Miami and from Tampa that will come over into Orlando and start, marketing here, which increases everybody's costs because there's only so many billboards. There's only so much ad space. There's only so many pay-per-click searches, whatever it is. It's just crazy to me to think of a firm being solely reliant upon that because let's say your biggest competitor comes in tomorrow and does the ad spend. Let's say Google changes their algorithms, whatever it is, those I think are great ways to supplement the one-on-one contact. But barring the fact that I completely changed my personality overnight and all my referral sources hate me, it would be very difficult and take a ton of time to steal all of my, my 150, 200, 300 referral sources because of it's based upon relationships. It's based upon us knowing each other, liking each other, trusting each other, being there for each other personally and professionally. Somebody else can't just pick that up and take it tomorrow.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. And I'm glad you said, I do think it can be a fantastic way to supplement everything with the digital space. So I'm not meaning to dog that space, but I'm just noticing that the businesses that are the strongest have a really heavy play and are very intentional about relationships and networking. And even if you don't like the word networking, just what you're talking about, going out, meeting people, being in the community, having the lunch, a couple of lunches a week, like being really committed to that. And just, it starts to become a bit predictable when you commit to those things, and then you start to track like what are the results of your efforts. Then there's a predictability there that you can start to, I would imagine, see for your efforts. And so you kind of start to know, the more I get out there, I should expect the more business is going to come in, but a predictability around it. I don't know. Do you look at numbers at all when you're thinking about your networking lunches? Do you think about return on investment? Like, how do you think about, because it seems a little less direct to be able to think about return on investment with this approach, but it's there. So is it something that you track?
So let me give you the lawyer answer of it depends.
Okay.
So we use Lawmatics for all of our intakes, and Lawmatics, I love it. I have no financial vested interest in them, but I think that's the best program I've ever come across for intake. And so I can tell you right now, I can pull up the percentage of cases we close across different channels. I can pull up every single referral source, that how many they've sent us, how many of those people have hired, as long as the person gave us the right information over the phone. Sometimes it'll be a wrong name, bad name, whatever. So from that standpoint, yes, we definitely track. I track as much data as I can, or I shouldn't say that. I track as much data as I think I need that I can track. But I don't, but I always tell people, I was like, networking gets that 4-letter word mentality sometimes, but really at its core, networking is doing what you want to do with who you want to do it with. So I'm never going to be, well, I shouldn't say never. Now I'm lucky enough to not be in the position where it's like, oh, so-and-so sent me 6 cases, let's go to lunch. So-and-so hasn't sent me a case. Let's not go to lunch. I'm beyond that. I had that problem, but now it's like, look, these are the 50 people I like hanging out with the most, that I enjoy. These are the 15 people I've met recently that I want to get to know more. These are the 10 people that have sent me stuff and I really respect. These are the 20 people that I think run their business better than I run mine. I want to pick their brain about what they're doing that's the best. And from that, I've got, 100 or so people. So you figure, three lunches a week, 50 weeks a year, I'm going to catch everybody about once. I've also got Magic season tickets. I've got UCF season tickets. We try to do quarterly events for the firm to get people together. And then I try to keep some buffer for, random people. Oh, you got to meet my friend. He really needs to hear you. He really needs to pick your brain, talk to you about this. I always want to be able to make time for those people, because I am so lucky to have had so many people do a bunch of stuff for me that I always want to be able to give back to the next, I don't want to say generation because it makes me feel old, but the next wave of attorneys, business owners, networkers, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you mind saying again the definition that you gave of networking? It's doing what you want to do
with the people you want to do it with.
With the people you want to do it with. I've never heard that definition of it, but I love it.
That's the only, we have, we're not at the point yet where we've reached peak data. At some point, we'll be able to quantify everything. But at the end of the day, humans have a really good bullshit detector. And so we all have been to the networking event. We've all come across that person who's the business card, needs to get every business card from every person, needs to have those 2 seconds, needs to name drop this, needs to do that. And I don't like that person. I assume most people don't, So I'm all about quality over quantity. And so that way, we only have our word. I don't have a trademark or a patent on anything. I don't have case law that only I can argue. I don't have a system that only I can use. So it's about my word. And so if you have 50 people that can count on you, and you can count on them, and you enjoy spending time with, that's going to be worth so much more than having 500 people in your Rolodex that you never come across. So there are people that send me a lot of business that I don't like, or I shouldn't say don't like, that I don't enjoy spending time with, and I will find other things for them that involve me not spending time with them. But ideally, I want somebody that will send me, 5 to 10 leads a year, and that I enjoy spending time with, and our families get along, and our kids get along, and our wives get along, and whatever. That to me, that's the unicorn that I'm looking for, because we're going to have a blast with them. If it's taking the kids to the beach, if it's going to a Magic game, if it's going to each other's house for dinner, if it's doing a barbecue, if it's, whatever it is, it's going to be so much more enjoyable. And I think all of us will get so much more out of it based upon genuinely liking each other.
Yeah, yes, I love that. And I like to, when I was asking about do you track your ROI or do you track anything around the networking that you do? That is kind of what I was thinking. Like when you mentioned Lawmatics, I love Lawmatics. I think its capability is better than any of the other systems that I've seen my clients using in terms of tracking, actually being able to look at numbers and data. And that is what I meant, because I'm glad you brought that up. I definitely didn't mean the question, but I could see where some people think of it this way. I didn't mean the question like tit for tat tracking like what this person is doing for you, but more tracking the results that you're getting in terms of referrals somewhere so that you can start to point to like the like you plug into people and you do the especially your definition of networking, which I love. You don't do it to get something out of those people. Like you know that it's good for business, but it's not like, tell me where I'm wrong, but you are focused on making sure that you are building relationships with people who you really enjoy. And through that, you just know that one of the byproducts is your business will grow because they trust you, and vice versa for them. Is that fair to
Yeah.
sum it up?
I mean, when I'm sitting there on my deathbed, I'm not going to think, oh my God, these people I never met could have sent me more cases. I'm going to sit there thinking, oh my God, I got to spend so much time with all these people that I genuinely enjoy. And we had great times doing whatever it was. And the business was secondary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think there's a way to build a business that is, of course, there's going to be things that aren't fun, but there's a way to build a business and have fun building a business and enjoying the people. I mean, behind every business is just people. So I think it sounds like you strike me as someone who it's important to you to enjoy what you're doing, to enjoy how you're spending your time, and to not make the business this burden on you that stresses you out. It's more, you're going to do things the way that you want to do things. And of course you'll test and experiment, but you could tell you're lined up. Your priorities are clear for you in terms of what you're willing to do and not do, because you know how you're willing to feel and not feel. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. And I actually only work 3 days a week. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I stay home with my kid and I get to spend time with him, and we'll go to the science center. We go to SeaWorld, we do whatever it is. So really all of well, I shouldn't say all, because I'll meet up with other lawyers, former lawyers, people that stay home with their kids, and we'll hang out and do stuff. But 95% of my networking is going to be Monday, Thursday, and Friday.
That's incredible. You really are truly designing your life the way you want your life.
Yeah. And it saddens me that that's so unique, because I don't think there's anything special about me other than I was willing to make the jump to make the priorities that I wanted, and working 100 hours a week wasn't my priority.
Right. Right. I've been talking to a lot of people lately about, there's a small group that I'm running where they worked on their vision and mission statements. And I think it's important for a firm to have something. I don't think there's ever a perfect vision or mission statement. I think it's going to evolve as the firm grows, or as time goes on, for whatever reason. But I do think it's important to kind of know what your vision for the ideal world that you kind of want to create with that firm, in your little corner of the world, what ideal world you want to create, or just a mission statement of some sort. But what I've realized, so actually I'm curious if that's something you guys have ever looked at or thought about, or if you have a vision or mission statement. But then my second question is, what I've come to learn over the years is that vision or mission statement is not going to be the thing that as a human gets us up every day to, there's to keep, even though it's fun, there's a lot of hard pieces or hard elements to building and growing a business. And so what drives humans to show up to do the work that's in line with the vision and mission, it's different. So for you, it sounds like, and we always talk about it, it's like it's the compelling reason for, like, why do you get up to do the work you do? Why do you get up to build the firm you're building? And yours somewhat sounds like it's something around making sure that you are able to live the life that you want to live, that you get to spend your time how you want to spend your time. But I don't know. Do you think that's different from that? Am I picking up, am I assuming too much?
So all right, so let me start with the first one, and then we'll see about the second one, how it relates. So I blatantly stole this idea from my dentist. I have the coolest dentist. I hate going to the dentist office, but they have a very cool office. Their staff is always great. They've got TVs on the ceiling, so when they're doing whatever it is, you can watch Netflix and whatever. Just they do such a great job. And every time you walk in, you go past this board that he has on the wall that's their core values. And it's like the patient always comes first, we'll stop if you're in pain, whatever it was. And it just sat with me every time I went to his office. So in maybe 2 or 3 months ago, I sat down with the whole team and I came up with what are our core values. And I've got it somewhere. I can pull them up. I haven't yet put it on a giant board for everybody to walk through every time. But it was interesting for me to make up our version of that mission statement, but as a group effort so that everybody was on the same page and invested in it and was able to be heard on what we really need to stand for. And it was just really cool because I'll do office-wide emails and I'll post, hey, remember we talked about this. Here's a good example. So I'm trying to think of, I'll just pull it up.
Okay. You don't have to share this if you don't want to. Who's your dentist?
Oh, Dr. Drew Burns with Park Smiles Dentistry in Winter Park.
Okay.
He went to school with my wife way back in the day, and he bought this practice that had been around for like 80 years, and it's just, they do the coolest stuff. And I'm going to have him come on the podcast just because the way that his office runs is phenomenal, and it's something that I will always, the longer I run a business, the more I realize when other people run businesses well and not. And so having to fill out, 47 papers every time you go see the doctor and having the front office staff not know what happened in the back. I mean, his office has all those things to a T. And so, so jumping off from his, I won't go through all of them, but we talked about, always do the right thing, consistently be extraordinary in the client experience, be a team player, charge a price that's fair to the client and also to you. And the one we did on the end, which I forced on everybody, was don't sacrifice your personal health and mental well-being, which I think a lot of businesses don't actually follow that one. And so I forced everybody to take that as the last one, and we'll focus on, sometimes the client is an asshole and it doesn't require you to lose sleep over them being a jerk. So then to go to your second question about, you talked about as it relates to the personal stuff, look, I love Gary Vee. I think his stuff is so dead on, and he talks about the authenticity and showing people your nuances and all of that. So from my standpoint, I go to work every day, usually in sandals, shorts, and a polo, because I want to be laid back. I want to be chill. I want an office culture that's chill. It's who I am naturally, whatever. So a lot of my personal stuff is an extension of our business and vice versa. There are times where I've got to put on a full suit and go to trial and be a butthead on behalf of my client and whatnot. But those are, I think I was in court 10 times this past year, and I'm hoping to not be in court at all next year. We'll see how that works out. So you're going to have, it's almost like a Venn diagram. You've got to have a lot of similar stuff between your business and yourself personally. You'll have some stuff that'll be on the edges, but if you're trying to be Gary Vee and you're running a super tight knit office that's stuffy, it's just not going to come off right with everybody. It's going to go back to you're going to rub people the wrong way. You're going to fire off their bullshit detector. So you have to have those things have a lot of similarities, and there will be some things that won't be 100% the whole way through, but you got to be your core self as a business owner and as a person and as a lawyer and as a husband and as a father and as everything else. You can't be 17 different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, to expand on that then for you, because I guess, could you say that you could be yourself fully and go work for someone else?
Well, so
why do you own your own business? Why do you own your own firm? Why is that important to you?
The thing that I tell people is if somebody gave me the same situation that I give my employees, I would totally go for it. And we being my wife and I, because we each own half, we always try to be fair to everybody else. We try to do for them what we would want done for us in that situation. I don't know that I trust anybody enough to know that they would actually do that. But like, I have sent emails to employees like, go home, stop working, it's too late, whatever it is along those lines, go have a life, go have fun, go do these things. And genuinely meant it. I mean, I think that you are a better employee when you're a better person. You're a better person when you sleep well. You're a better person when you get to do the fun things that you want. We've gotten into this culture of just work harder, and burn yourself out. And it's only now in, the end of 2019, the beginning of 2020 that we have any semblance of not even work-life balance, but giving yourself time to recharge the batteries.
Yeah, absolutely. I can totally identify with that idea that if I, this is almost 16 years ago, when I used to be a dental hygienist.
Okay.
And so, which is random. And it's like, feels like a lifetime ago, but I left working clinically and started working for a consulting firm because I could not find the doctor to work for or the team to work with that made any sense to me. It was like this, like we're all just breaking our backs for what? Like everybody's not happy here, and that's so common. And I'm sure that's common in every industry. But I really like, as time has morphed on, and I've worked with as many teams as I've worked with, tons of doctors and dentists, but then also now attorneys. It is fascinating to watch those who, there's a lot of owners who leave the environment and start their own thing because they know it can be done better. They know it can be done in a way that is fulfilling and is, I don't know. You get my point, but I think it sounds like you do a really good job of keeping that at the forefront. And that sounds like what you're saying is it's a big part of your reason why you're doing what you're doing. You have your own firm is because you know that there's a certain environment you want to create and a certain way you want to treat people and a certain way that you want business done. And you're up for the challenge of creating that. And people like working with you because of that. I would assume. It sounds like it.
Well, that's the thing that I always jump on is the kind of the opposite of I guess the position that you're in, kind of the opposite of the question. I have staff members that are so thankful that I don't scream at them every day over everything.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to put myself in a position as to like, what would it take for me to want to be in the office yelling and screaming every day? Because I'd quit as the owner if that's what I'm in all the time. I'd fire the employees and figure out if it's me or them or whatever. It's so mind-boggling to me that people, that seems to be not necessarily the norm, but that seems to be more common than it should be. Because if you're building a business that you're proud of, that fits the lifestyle you want, you don't have that strife. And look, I've had to fire people and it sucks, and I've had people quit and it sucks, but we were better for all those. And I hope that they were better for all those. I hope they found something that was, a less tech savvy firm that fit more with, their old school stuff of doing it, or they changed into a different area of law that they enjoyed more. And for us, we found people that were more aligned with what we were looking for. But there's no amount of money that is worth me hating coming into the office every day.
Yeah. I'm baffled by some of it.
Yeah.
Even the last consulting firm I worked for, and I can say this because I've never said the name of the firm. This is part of the reason why the CEO would throw things across the room, like just, irate. And it's not, it can't be you that's making the person this mad. It's just like, they're just unhappy people running businesses, and who knows why they're unhappy. Like, I'm not going to try to dissect all that, but I think a lot of people, I feel like we're in a wave of a time where people recognize that they want to create something different, and they know that it's possible to create something different. They know that it's possible to create an environment where there is balance with work and life, and there is appreciation for one another, and where you don't have to be angry, I guess. So anyway,
I'll take it even a step farther than you. The interest, so, as lawyers, we always get stuck up on how do you prove a negative? Like, how do I prove that my client did not do something or was not somewhere or whatever it is? Because it's a lot easier to prove positive things. So when you hear all these people write those stupid fucking articles in the bar journal about how like work-life balance isn't a thing and work harder and all that, they're proving a negative point. If you can find one person that has work-life balance that they're happy with, that means it's possible. It's so much harder to prove that it's impossible to be happy than it is to prove that it is possible. And yet we spend so much more time telling people, oh, work harder, pedal faster, do this, swim farther, go into the office on Saturdays and Sundays. It's I don't get it.
That's really well said. Like I think that's one of the reasons I've been drawn to you and what you're building, and drawn to Damon and what he's building. There's a lot of good businessmen out there, businesswomen out there. But there's something about the demeanor and the approach that the person just oozes. Like it's just who they are, where they're really authentic inside of the business. They're smart in terms of they like to go on facts, not feelings, numbers, not hunches, but they are dedicated to being true to themselves. And it's magnetic. Not everybody has that. And I think people probably look at you and maybe others as well as these shining examples of what's possible. And so I'm super grateful for attorneys like you, because I think people think it's a pipe dream. I think I would have a hunch that there's a lot of people that look at you and think you're lucky for whatever reason. And not that you're not lucky, but I think you just decided that this is what you want to build, and you're uncompromising in your efforts in going after that. And you do have a pretty clear vision of exactly what you want to create and how you want it done. And that I just think you serve as such a great example in the entrepreneurial community of attorneys, because there's no perfect roadmap to build a business. And so you get to do this really any way you want to do it. And you are a shining example of doing that in a way that is fulfilling and is in alignment with who you are and all of it. So
thank you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. But to go off what you're saying, it is possible for everybody. I think the whole problem is people get caught up in what they think they're supposed to be, or they think what they're supposed to do. And so, like the CEO throwing the shoe, it's because they're unhappy with what's going on.
Yeah.
And so you get all these attorneys that think they have to do it a certain way, or business owners have to do it a certain way. You don't. There is a perfect way, but it's your perfect way. It's not the perfect way for anybody else. And I mean, then that's the thing. I don't think there's anything special about me other than that I walked the walk that I wanted. And I think that everybody can do that. The thing is, for some people, that's going to be an employee. For some people, it's not going to be a business owner, but they're going to be able to find a position where they are happy and in harmony and in sync and together without all that strife and conflict. And I think that's the problem that people find, and even on the Max Lawyer stuff, there's a lot of people that will tell everybody, quit your job and start this and start that. I don't ever tell somebody that based upon my life. I will ask them questions based upon their life. What are the pros and cons of making a switch and doing this? Because you have to believe that everybody has the ability to be happy. I have to believe that that's true, because if it's not true, that's so sad for those people that have no chance to be happy. But so many people put their happiness as too low of a priority. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, something you just said made me think too, because you mentioned a minute ago, look, I've had to fire people, which isn't fun, but that's part of having a business. And actually, I would take that one step further. It's part of having a business, but maybe even more so having a business and knowing, like, I'm sure that there's a really good chance that the people you had to fire were good people, but they don't align with how you do things in the firm. Like maybe because they're old school. I don't know what the deal was, and we don't have to go into that, but it seems like it would be a lot easier to make those kinds of decisions with hiring and firing if you're very clear on what you're uncompromising on. And it sounds like the people you've let go in the past, or that you guys have parted ways for whatever reason, that it is probably more about the alignment of them inside of your organization and less about numbers or performance. That matters. Numbers and performance matters. But tell me, what's your experience with that? Like, letting someone go, was it a big discrepancy in alignment of the things that you guys care about and your values, or was it more straight up performance? Got to get out.
Well, okay, so I mean, I've fired people for many different reasons.
Yeah.
When you have people that don't show up for work, when you have people that steal, those are the easy ones. There's no sleep
Yep.
loss, there's no whatever. We've had people, and then when you have the same for us for performance stuff, and we've talked to you and we've gone over it and we've sat down and things haven't changed, then, it's time to go. I've had some people that I genuinely liked, and then my wife and I have had to rock, paper, scissors for who does the firing because we both genuinely like the person. We both feel badly for it. And I have people that I fired I had somebody I fired like 4 months ago and I still feel badly about it. But my business has run so much better. It's been so much easier for me, for the clients, for the other attorneys, for everybody else, because the person who is in that spot is doing things the right way, as opposed to making everybody else make up for the mistakes that the person who's no longer with us has been. It's just tough. But when I sit down to do I guess it really starts with the job posting. When I do a post, I found I found employees through Indeed. I found them through Facebook. I found them through referrals. I do like a very detailed post. Look, this is the kind of firm that we are. I'm going to have my child in the firm, in the office some days. If you don't like that, we're not for you. I'm going to wear shorts and a t-shirt or a polo. If that's not for you, we're not for you. If, I've got a ball pit in my wife's office that my kid hangs out in and my wife's laid down in sometimes. If that's not what you want, we're not for you. And then when we get to the interviews, I flat out told people, I was like, look, I think you'd be a good fit for me, but I don't think I'd be a good fit for you. So I think you'd leave. And so I don't want to hire you because I think you wouldn't be happy and you'd leave. And they're like, I've had attorneys give me the dumbest look on their face. Like, what do you mean? Like, you think I'm great for the spot, but you don't want to hire me? And I'm like, yeah, because I don't want the turnover. I don't want the strife. I don't want the aggravation. And a couple of them ended up, I had two of them who like called me up 6 months later, a year later, or Facebook message and thanked me. They're like, you turned me down for that. I found this job. I realized it's what I wanted to do. I didn't have to generate business. I wasn't doing the defense work. Now I'm working over here or whatever. And it was just so interesting to see that like it really sat with them that we cared about both directions, which again, selfishly, I don't want people in and out every 2 months regardless, but it was just so different from what they had experienced before. And that everybody went their separate ways happier than if we had tried to stay together unhappily.
Absolutely. Do you feel like you've gotten faster with firing as your business has evolved because you're learning that hanging on and sort of trying to make something work while your intentions may have been great, now do you sort of are you quicker to recognize when you just need to make the call and not drag it out?
I don't know. I think I've gotten better at weeding out problems at the hiring stage so people will last longer, period. Mm-hmm. So I'm not, I don't know. I mean, I go back and I want to kick myself for people that I hired 3 years ago and 4 years ago and didn't ask the right questions and whatever. So I think that we've had, what is it? You can't shine shit. So I've gotten a much better people in, and sometimes they still don't work out, but at least we've done a better job identifying that part, which I think we can control a lot better than whether or not they do the job well.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Do you, and I'm being conscious of our time. Do you have a couple extra minutes? I have another question for you.
Take all the time you need. I've got the next event I have is at 6 and it's
okay.
4 o'clock.
Okay,
now,
great.
So.
I was curious too, because it seems like you probably have gotten some sort of onboarding down for your firm. Am I just making an assumption there that isn't true, or do you feel like you guys do have a pretty good onboarding process for people you bring into the firm?
It depends upon their position. So like the last change that we made was at the reception position, which we've now reworked into a director of first impressions position, which pays more, which appeals to a better person, whatever. So for her, I was like, you're coming into a dumpster fire. I'm really sorry. You will have support from everybody else. But part of it is we're going to build the policies and procedures. And the person I hired, she's a UF grad who got almost straight A's the entire time through at a very good school. And she's brilliant, and she's probably way smarter than me. If not, it's very close as a total 100% compliment to her. And so she's done such a great job helping us get that position into a more organized and systematized and whatever. So it was easy for me to systematize the attorney stuff because I did it. And, I had the firm at the beginning for me and did some of the paralegal stuff and systematized a lot of that. But our onboarding will be a lot better for that position now, thanks to her. And I think we'll only have to onboard that position because she's destined for bigger and better things, and we'll probably go to a tier 1 law school and become an attorney. And one day I'll work for her, or she'll be the Supreme Court judge hearing one of our cases or something.
That's great. That's great. But you get to borrow her for now, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. And then I also wanted to ask about inside your firm. There's something I see a lot on forums, questions that attorneys will pose to one another in seeking help or advice around project management systems. And so I'm curious to ask you about this because, number one, I know that a lot of the software is lacking in terms of all the capabilities and keeping everyone as organized as they want to be. But so is that true for you? Like the software that you use, do you need to also use a project management system outside of that for cases, for anything to do with cases, not necessarily the other tasky and project kind of work in the firm, but case related stuff? Do you use an outside project management system?
So yeah, we use Practice Panther.
And outside of that, but like a lot of people use Asana also, or ClickUp, or I don't know, something like that.
For me, between Lawmatics and I love Lawmatics. I hate Practice Panther, but Practice Panther runs the cases when they currently exist. It runs the billing. My wife's in charge of those things. She likes Practice Panther, and I've given up on the discussion. But between those two things, it covers everything that we want. So what I did was I built. We'll build matters into Practice Panther for each of our events, and then we'll task people with the stuff for the events inside of it. So I've sort of used it for more than what it's designed for to cover. I don't want to use a third program, Mondays, Asana, Trello, whatever. I just don't want to worry about it. So everybody has a matter that's their marketing strategies, and it's all right there. Every event gets its own matter. Whatever we're doing, I just kind of force it through Practice Panther.
Okay, cool. So you said marketing strategies, but even like you said, you have someone in-house that really kind of keeps organized on top of some of the networking and marketing stuff. Do they also use Practice Panther?
Yes. So everybody at the office except for one has a Practice Panther login. So what she'll do, she'll get like a recurring task that runs on the first Monday of every month to email the attorneys. Is there anybody you want me to reach out to lunch for you on, or something along those lines? And then, we'll get the follow-up through there.
Cool. Okay. That's great to know. I'm glad you don't use something externally. I feel like it seems like that question comes up like once every 2 weeks. There's someone asking about how, like, basically where the answers to their question are Asana, Trello, Monday, ClickUp, all of those things. And I'm super curious, like, is that, as I've been asking more and more attorneys who have businesses that are functioning really well, like, do you use an outside source? Is this something, like, I just wonder if sometimes I'm guilty of this at times too. We bring in technology that can maybe make things more complicated than they need to be, where we could simplify our systems and simplify our software. And so I was just curious if you found the need to use something outside of your law software.
What you said is dead on. I will spend so much more time to make what I currently have work for what I want. And that's like before I switched to Lawmatics, and I still have Zapier. I've got that integrated with, we used to have MailChimp, and now it's all in Lawmatics. I have that integrated with Google Mail, with Gmail. I have that integrated with Google Calendar. I integrated, 14 different programs. Also, Practice Panther would run everything else. So I got automated emails running off of Practice Panther through Gmail, through Zapier, and all these things. But the problem was it was easier to train people because I didn't have to train them on 17 different programs. But then when things changed, it would change all the integrations and everything would get broken. So I'd like to go to Lawmatics 100%. Like between Lawmatics and Gmail, I think I could, and Google Calendar, I think I could get everything between those three. But again, like I said, my wife does the billing and the others and the case oversight stuff. So she likes Practice Panther. It's fine. But to bring in, we're already at 4 programs right there, and Gmail and Google Calendar integrate very well, and Lawmatics integrates with Google Calendar really well, and whatever it is. But you're better off spending 5 extra hours to not have to use a new program, or at least to train somebody on a new program. So Zapier does a lot of stuff behind the scenes just because it's harder to swap people out. It makes that shit bigger. It's harder to make those turns. It's harder to make those edits. It's harder to fix those things. And I think it's the harder solution at the beginning. That's the easier solution in the long run.
Yeah, that makes, yeah. I was just talking to someone a couple of weeks ago. They were thinking of switching entirely to something, just they were going to move everything, and because they wanted things to be in one place instead of spread among many places. And I kind of had to talk them off a ledge, because it was like, I think you can more fully use the software you have so that you can bring it all more into one place. I think software sometimes, and I'm wondering if it's this way with legal software, you almost need a master's degree to understand its full capacity. And even if it's not very user-friendly, there's things that I think people probably don't use their software for that they could, that would help, like take the extra 5 hours basically and learn the capabilities of the software so that you can start utilizing its full functionality. And so anyway, we had this full-on discussion. I was like, man, you do not jump ship, because you're to onboard your entire firm to something new that also isn't law software. So like, it's just going to be a big jump. I don't know. Like, to me, there's got to be a way, even if it's not the most ideal software, there's got to be a way to keep things and more fully function, more fully utilize the software. Plus Zapier, which you were just talking about. I mean, that helps tremendously. Tie everything together with a pretty little bow.
Well, the sort of nice thing is 99% of legal dedicated software is crap. Yeah. So it's designed for some, not idiot, but some, 50 to 60-year-old attorney that just now is no longer using books for research. So let's make it easy to use by removing all of the functionality that it should have, which is why, you and I feel the same way about Lawmatics, because when they did their sales pitch on the thing, I was like, this is insane, because this does everything that I thought every other program should do and more. And you're adding stuff every 3 or 4 weeks. And, if something breaks, it's fixed within 24 hours, but stuff doesn't break at the speed that you're adding new features that are great. And so a lot of people I talk to are like, oh, I feel like I'm beta testing it. I'm like, yeah, but I'd rather beta test that than I've been in with Practice Panther for 3 years. They've added one feature I liked in 3 years, as opposed to Lawmatics has added 3 features I liked this month, or last month, because it's the 5th now. But
right. I love the tracking capabilities in Lawmatics, or just the reporting capabilities in Lawmatics. Is like, God, that is what it should be like. It should, the visuals that go along with the data, it's really helpful. You certainly know way better than I do, but when I got to see a demo of that, I was like, holy cow, this is like, whoever built this understands business. It feels right for a business owner to have something like this. Okay. The last thing I would love for you to say, to mention before we get off is, okay, when do you plan to have your book done? Because I'm pumped for it, and I'm sure everybody listening to this will be as well. When do you plan to have the book done? And are you self-publishing, or are you going to go for a big publisher?
So my wife and I are taking a cruise next week for 5 days. I'm hoping to have the first draft done then. And at that point, I will have no idea what I'm doing anymore with it in regards to editing and formatting and publishing and all those things. So I have no idea, but I am convinced that if I can get all of this stuff written, at the very least, I will have a fantastic employee handbook for my employees. And I'm sure I can figure out Amazon self-publishing or whatever along those lines. So we'll see, I guess, is the is the answer.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I'm excited I'm excited for it. And I'm sure when it comes out, you have to come back on the podcast.
Okay. We'll definitely will do.
Actually, I do have one more question.
Sure.
At some point when you were talking, I was fishing through, I have a stack of business cards here next to me that I just decided to keep certain ones. Yours is one of them.
Oh, all right.
And
we made the
I was wondering, yeah, I was wondering if did you pay a branding agency to do some of your branding and like create these business cards, for example, or did you do this on your own?
So I have a good friend of ours who does some graphic design stuff that helped me with it, but I sketched out in my very rudimentary, looks like a 6-year-old to get it pretty much what I wanted, and then he just put it all together to make it look good.
I think it's a useful business card, I think. Like I know no one can see this, but on the front it has your company information, and I love the tagline or the motto there, the best defense is a good offense. But then so it has all the company information, and then on the back it has 3 bullets that are advice for whoever might be holding this and whoever might need you, which the first bullet is to ask, am I free to leave? The second bullet is don't consent. And the third bullet is to ask, can I call my attorney? I just think it's just useful. And people don't have useful business cards, but Jordan does.
Well, and to make it better, I will do a whole 30-minute speech for people on their rights with cops when it comes to being stopped at bars or football games or whatever about the back. So the back is my dedicated outline for the speech.
Oh, nice.
So I've had a number of people that may or may not have heard me that called me 2 years later and were like, hey, I want to let you know I didn't get arrested because of your advice, wow. 2 years earlier. And I'm like, great, I made myself no money, but I'm glad it helped you out. I'm glad you kept it. And, clearly I made an impact on your life. So what more can I ask for?
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's such a great conversation, and I'm excited for the future for you in the book. And so I'm glad you're willing to come back on. It'll be great.
Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited for the change in your life that's coming up.
Oh, thanks. Yes. It's coming very, very quickly. Thank you. He's referring to the child I'm about to give birth to, everybody.
I'll leave you with having a kid's the one decision I made that made every other part of my life so much more difficult, but I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I do believe those words when you say them. You can't know though. That's the crazy thing. People can prepare you, and intellectually you might understand something, but I have a hunch you don't really understand it until you have a kid.
Correct. And so 2 things to that. One, I am not an emotional person, or at least I was not. And then he was born and I saw him and I started bawling. And I've been so much more emotional ever since then, just over every Lifetime movie and Hallmark ad and whatever it is.
Wow.
And then the other thing is, look, he'll be 2 in March. I still don't know what I'm doing on a lot of things, but he's alive. He's happy. We enjoy each other. We have a good time, and it's totally fine.
That's so cool. Does he look like a mini version of you? Like polo shirt, shorts, and sandals?
Sometimes. He's got like these rain boots he really likes, but we got him we have matching Jordan Law shirts that are with the logo and everything. So he's a good walking billboard here and there. But sometimes he looks exactly like me. Sometimes he looks exactly like his mom. Sometimes he acts exactly like me. Sometimes he acts exactly like her. So I'm just I'm afraid that he'll have her intellect and my attitude, and then we'll all be screwed.
He's gonna run the world, man.
for better or worse, depending upon how the mood swings.
Well, thanks so much. We'll talk to you again really soon.
All right. Thank you again.
Okay, thanks. Hi guys, it's me again. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it, and I hope you did, please subscribe so that you get real-time updates whenever we drop a new episode. If you want to continue to hang out with us, come on over to our website and check out how we work with clients. It's our signature 3-phase approach that we use with law firms to achieve growth on their own terms. Head to velocitywork.com/begin for information about those 3 phases and how you might get started if you'd like. Again, that's velocitywork.com/begin. If there's a topic you'd like covered on a future episode, or a question you have, or someone you'd love to have interviewed on the Velocity Work podcast, go to speakpipe.com/velocitywork. Leave us a voice message there. It can be anonymous or not. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to hang out with us on social, come on over to Instagram. Our handle is velocity.work. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/meetvelocitywork. Cheers, my friends, to real growth and a great life. Bye, guys. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.